Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're doing something really fun today. We're going to put on our ancient detective hats and travel back thousands of years to uncover the Indus-Sarasvati civilization. You might also know it as the Harappan civilization. We're going to dig into the evidence of this remarkably advanced society together, and trust me, it is going to blow your mind. You know, when we usually picture ancient empires, we instantly think of massive inequality, right? We picture pharaohs, powerful kings, and forced labor. But noted archaeologist B.B. Lal summarized the Harappan world perfectly. He said, in essence, the Harappan societal scenario was not that of exploitation, but of mutual accommodation. It's a totally different vibe. Let's see exactly how they managed to achieve that kind of balance.
All right, here is our roadmap for today. 1. Defining a civilization. 2. The Harappan world. 3. Master city planners. 4. Daily life and trade. And 5. The mysterious decline.
Section 1. Defining a civilization. So, what actually makes a society a civilization? Well, the ultimate checklist includes a few key pillars. You need government, urbanism, specialized crafts, trade, writing, shared cultural ideas, and productive agriculture. And spoiler alert, as we dive into this, the Harappans literally ticked every single one of those boxes. Section 2. The Harappan world. To put things into perspective chronologically, humanity's leap into civilization happened in waves. About 6,000 years ago, Mesopotamia got its start, and that was followed a few centuries later by ancient Egypt. But right alongside those famous heavyweights was the Indus-Sarasvati civilization. They transitioned from small villages to large towns across the vast plains of the Punjab, Sindh, Gujarat, and Haryana, peaking around 2600 BCE with some seriously major thriving cities. This golden age lasted for hundreds of years before a really mysterious decline kicked in around 1900 BCE. And we are definitely not talking about a scattered collection of muddy huts here. These were massive, heavily fortified urban centers built along the powerful Indus River and the ancient Sarasvati River. Just the sheer precision of the stonework at places like the North Gate entrance to Dholavira's castle area in modern-day Gujarat tells you immediately that these people had incredibly deep administrative organization and some seriously advanced construction tech. Moving right into Section 3, Master City Planners. These cities weren't just thrown together haphazardly over time, they were master planned from the ground up. In cities like Kalibangan and Dholavira, wide streets were laid out in a strict grid pattern. I'm talking streets running exactly perpendicular to each other, basically just like a modern downtown area. The foundations were carefully laid out, and the cities were organized into highly distinct planned zones. It's honestly an astonishing level of foresight for a society that existed over 4,000 years ago. But honestly, the craziest part is what was happening underneath those streets. The Harappans had this remarkable dedication to cleanliness and water management that the rest of the world wouldn't really see again for millennia. Homes actually had their own separate bathing areas, and the wastewater, it flowed directly into a super complex network of covered brick drains running right below the streets, safely carrying everything away from where people lived. It's a highly functional, fully ancient sewage system. Get this, in Mohenjo-Daro alone, archaeologists have counted roughly 700 regularly maintained brick wells. 700. And these weren't just temporary holes in the ground. They were built with absolute precision out of standardized bricks and maintained for centuries. That ensured the entire urban population had super reliable, easy access to fresh water. It just goes to show an incredibly high civic sense and organized public works. This genius engineering extended out to massive public projects too. Over in Dholavira, there's a colossal basin measuring 217 meters long. To put that into perspective, that is slightly more than 2 modern football fields laid end to end. They even waterproofed the whole thing using natural bitumen, which is basically a form of tar, smeared over carefully laid bricks. Experts think this colossal structure was actually a dockyard to receive and send trade boats. It really makes the massive scale of their engineering feel tangible, doesn't it? Section 4. Daily Life and Trade. Because they smartly built their settlements right along the banks of enriching rivers like the Indus and the Sarasvati, their agriculture absolutely boomed. The Harappan diet was incredibly rich and varied. From archaeological digs, we know for a fact they grew cereals like barley, wheat, millets, and even rice. Plus, they cultivated pulses and a huge variety of vegetables. This abundant, diverse food supply was the literal engine that fed the villages and fueled those massive urban centers we just talked about. I want you to just pause for a second and imagine being transported back in time, standing right there in an average Harappan kitchen. You've got wheat, millets, lentils, fresh veggies, and clean water from your local brick well. What are you going to make? Maybe a hearty vegetable stew with some flatbread or a warm bowl of rice and pulses? When you think about it that way, the 4,000-year gap between their world and ours suddenly doesn't feel so vast. Their daily staples are surprisingly familiar to what a lot of us still eat today.
But they weren't just farmers. They were brilliant craftspeople and serious innovators. They exported beautiful ornaments, sturdy timber, and everyday items. And here's a massive fun fact. The Harappans were actually the very first people in all of Eurasia to grow cotton. They wove it into clothes, which totally revolutionized textiles. They also mastered sophisticated drilling techniques for semi-precious stones to make these beautiful reddish carnelian beads, and they worked hard conch shells into gorgeous bangles.
With all these highly desirable goods, they naturally engaged in a brisk, highly active international trade network. And to manage all of that, they used these small, intricately carved seals. Archaeologists have found them as far away as Oman and Iran. They basically acted like ancient shipping labels or corporate logos. Traders would use them to stamp and identify their exported goods, proving that the Harappans definitely weren't isolated. They were deeply connected global traders operating across vast, vast distances.
Which brings us to our final chapter, Section 5, The Mysterious Decline.
So what happened to them? The tragic breakdown wasn't caused by some massive war or a sudden overnight disaster. Instead, it seems to have been a very gradual, brutal environmental shift. Around 1900 BCE, severe climate and environmental changes began taking their toll. The Great Saraswati River, which ancient texts describe as flowing powerfully from the mountains to the sea, eventually dried up. Without reliable water for their massive agricultural needs, those great grid-planned cities just couldn't survive and were gradually abandoned. The centralized administration dissolved, and the citizens scattered, forced to adapt by returning to hundreds of small rural settlements just to survive. It really leaves us with a haunting and deeply relevant thought. Think about it. The Harappans were master engineers, global traders, and brilliant urban planners. Yet, when the climate shifted and the rivers failed, their only option for survival was to abandon their urban triumphs and return to the land. It makes you wonder, if our modern, highly engineered cities face similar extreme environmental changes today, would we too be forced to scatter and return to a rural lifestyle just to survive? It's a pretty powerful reminder from the past that no matter how advanced a civilization gets, we are always intimately tied to the environment around us.